Hey everybody, we're looking at a kind of a tricky question. It says each of the small cubes in this prism has an edge length of 1/3. So that means that this line right here is 1/3. There are a couple approaches that we could use to figuring this out. Now, if we just take one of this corner piece off and we ask ourselves, what would the volume of this piece be? Wouldn't we be multiplying 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3? And what does that equal? Well, let's give it some thought. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. And 9 times 3 would be 27. So the volume of this is 1/27th of a cubic foot. So I'm just going to write that number down here so we know. It's 1/27th of a cubic foot. And don't be distracted if you hear noises in the background. It's just my husband cooking while I'm making this video. So if you hear anything weird in the background, just do your best to ignore it. All right, so if we know that we have a bunch of cubes that are like that, in fact, how many of those do we have? Let's count going across. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them going that way. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them going that way. And we have 1, 2 of them going back. So if we wanted to figure out how many of the 3rd foot edge length cubes we have, we could multiply these numbers together. So how about we do 4 times 6, which is 24, times 2. Here we have 8, and here we have 4. So we have 48 of what I would be calling of these 3rd edge cubes. Sometimes teachers refer to them as mini cubes. We have 48 of those. Now what we don't have is we don't have 48 cubic feet. So if that's a choice, don't pick that because that's not what we have. We have 48 of these mini cubes. So once you get to this point, you have a couple of approaches for how you might figure out how many, what I call full cubes we have. We have talked about the strategy of using a proportion. So if you like the idea of using proportions, the ratio for full to what I'm calling 3rd cubes is a 1 to 27, right? For every one full cube, you need 27 of those 3rd cubes. Now, we have 48 of what? We have 48 of the 3rd cube. So I'm going to put that right here in the proportion, and I want to know how many full cubes I have. So this is one approach that we can take. Now, if we'd use this approach, we might proceed with using cross products. 1 times 48 would be equal to 48. And then this other cross product going the other way, I'll highlight that in purple, would be this being multiplied with that, which is 27 times f. And now we have an equation where we can think about what would we do to solve it. The opposite of multiplying a variable by 27 would be to divide by 27. This would simplify to be 1, and 1 times f would be f, which, by the way, I'm using f to represent full unit cubes or full foot cubes. So this really means 48 divided by 27. So we can do the 48 divided by 27. Now, another approach that you may have seen is to take the dimensions that you have, which are, we have the 6 times 4 times 2, which we already know that equals 48. And you may have seen this before. If we were to take that number and multiply it by 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3, 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3. Why? Because that multiplying those red numbers gives us the volume of one of those little mini cubes, which we already know to be equal to 1/27th. If you find this product of 48 times 1/27th, doesn't that bring you back to this? You're doing the same thing. This really means 48 divided by 27, right? Because this is 48. If we do 48 times 1, we get 48. If we do 1 times 27, we get 27. So we're back to this idea of 48 divided by 27. So finish up that computation, how you think of it. If you think of it as a ratio or you think of it as this expression and simplifying that expression, both will lead you to the same answer.